Hi everyone, how we doing?
Cheers, Jay.
Sorry,
Cheers, y'all.
we were 2 minutes late. We're sorry.
I think it was like 90 seconds, but
I blame Michael.
it's all my fault. I was distracting her with questions. We're excited because this is why we're doing some kind of work, right? Getting our myth busting on and coming up with some questions, some things, some myths that we're going to cover that you may be surprised that you may not. And yeah, G, I even say maybe we have people like list off some myths they have heard and they're wondering maybe we'll even break that down.
I agree. We have everything from funny myths to serious myths to parenting myths to medical myths. I feel like I'm getting tongue-tied here. Tongue-tied here. Guys, I am Gina Marie Vega, new mom, influencer, entrepreneur, jack of all trades, master of some. And then we have here Coach Mike, taker of name, kicker of butts. Sir Michaelotz, aka I don't even know what else you want to call yourself at this point.
That one's my favorite.
That one's your favorite?
Yeah, 100%.
I
gotta do push-ups.
No, come on, really?
I said 100%.
Oh, I hate you. Come on, Mike. Mike, every time. So, just an FYI, guys, if you feel like knowing what Michael's doing, that every time he says the 100%, I'm not involved with this.
You can.
That he has to do push-ups, so he gets down on the floor no matter where he is and starts doing some push-up, guys. Okay. So we're going to pick a few topics. Maybe you guys join us in the chat and in the carousel down below, guys. We're not really focused too much on the products here today. Our live podcast is about you guys joining us here today, talking about different things. But we do have everything that we use here in our podcast, from the cameras to the ring lights to my laptop. Everything basically in my office is in my carousel from these headphones, and vice versa. So guys, you can swipe through, check everything out. But we are mainly focused about you guys tonight, Wednesday nights, about you, and interacting and talking about the topics at hand with you guys. So Mike, do you want to start something, or you want to start with your first myth?
Oh, yeah. And really quick, speaking of like products, I'm just going to get this out of the way now. I've got like 3 or 4 different products in the carousel. One of them being the booty bands, Gina, that we were talking about.
Oh, really?
You do a workout for. They're all lightning deals. So I think they're like about anywhere from 10 to 32% claimed right now. So get on them if you want. But like Gina said, and the first myth I wanted to dig into was, ooh, this is a good one. So we only use 10% of our brains.
Okay. Okay. So wait, let me guess if it's myth or if it's fact. Only use 10% of our brains. I feel like that's 100% true.
Gotta let the suspense build there.
Come on, no, tell us. So is it true that we only use 10% of our brains?
So I'm gonna read you from the source that I'm getting it from. It's saying it's false, that it is a myth.
Okay.
And here's the breakdown, their explanation. Boom, 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 boom. Let me get this out of the way. And many people believe that humans only use 10% of their brains. It's even a plot line for movies like Lucy. Oh, what's up, Lewis? Hey, hey. But it's nothing but a myth, according to the source. Neurologist Barry Gordon told Scientific American, he says that humans use virtually every part of their brain. Most of the brain is active and almost all the time, or active almost all the time.
Isn't it true? But like when you're doing certain functions, yes, obviously your brain is moving at all parts, making you breathe, making you move your legs. But there's parts that are like not like as working as hard as others, like to talk, or opposed to, I don't know, blinking. I feel like there's something like true to that.
Yeah, so you know what's interesting about that? And this is, again, this goes outside my scope to a certain capacity because I'm going to trust the neurologist over my interpretation of brain activity.
Let's trust the neurologist.
However, I think to your point, though, G, there's that concept, and I think where the myth comes from is this idea of like, hey, so we have all of our brains working, maybe they're just not maxed out or leveraged to 100% capacity. So if you look at, yes, we're using all of our brain, but to what capacity? Even that, I still think I've heard different numbers on that. And I think it ultimately goes back down to like breathing, for example. There's like different types of functions, the automatic functioning ones like breathing, your heart beating. You don't have to think about those things. It's just programmed into work. But like me moving my arms right now, technically I'd even put that, because I'm not thinking about doing this. I'm just kind of like, you know, like we're so used to talking with our hands and that function in our body language, but there's still a certain amount of brain capacity and activity that's happening. And here, to me, it goes back down to the expression, neurons that fire together wire together. So when I'm talking, I typically use my hands. So it's a pattern that's become kind of built in. So automatically, once I start talking, my hands start going. They're just kind of built together in a neural pathway sense. Does that make sense? What do you think?
That sounds really high technical. I'm going to nod my head yes.
Yeah.
I'm just going to nod my head like, yes, I completely understand.
That's what you said.
Sorry, now I'm going to give you a myth, Michael.
Hit me. Let's see if I can get it.
All right. So, let's see. What did I have? Which one do I want to do? Okay, let's do ooh, they got so many good ones. Holding your baby too much will spoil them.
What? I'm gonna say that's 100% myth.
Okay, let's go to what this person at bestlifeonline.com, whether this is true or not, this is what they have to say. Worried that all the time spent holding and snuggling with your adorable newborn is going to make a difficult or downright spoiled child? Don't be, says Posner. This definitely does not happen in the beginning. When they're newborns, there's no such thing as being snuggled too much. They need the snuggle time. They spent 9 months in a cuddly, snuggled up in your uterus. Okay.
Yeah, like on the flip side of that, G, I forget what the term is or what it's exactly called, but like if you don't hold a newborn baby enough, they'll die. Like that's like
Really?
on the flip side of it. I forget what it's called. There's a particular term for it. Here, let me just like search it really quick. So now I want to know.
What's your view on that?
On either holding them too much or not holding them enough, or on like that
holding them too much. Like, what do you think? Do you think holding them too much is like, can you spoil a baby? Yeah. Do you think at a certain age you should stop holding them and coddling them as much?
I don't know if I even believe in like if we look at what spoiled is, like I think it's just a matter of like what behaviors have we conditioned to be like reinforced, right? So like I think that's possible, but not with like holding them and caring for them, especially in the first year. Maybe after like 1 to 3 years, but that's me just personally. Like that's not me basing it off any kind of science or anything like that. Oh, you guys are on already? Yeah, Pineapple, I see you, homie. Yeah, we're rocking and rolling. We're rocking and rolling here, girl. But yes, I think it's a matter of eventually you can spoil them, but I don't think you can even spoil like someone with too many hugs or too much affection. I think it's really you spoil them with like, hey, they did something, and then you give them like, oh, okay, hey, I want you to stop crying, so I'm gonna give you some candy.
Or they give you a pass in every bad situation they create in their life, and then you just enable them throughout their entire life, and then they turn out to be a bag of doo-doo.
Exactly.
As we know happens.
That will happen.
But I think I would say like you can make a child very needy, maybe. I don't know if the word would be spoiled. It depends on that emotional state. I think that affects their emotional state opposed to them being spoiled. So I think there's a difference between being spoiled and I'm not saying you shouldn't hold your child or be coddling and loving with them. I think if you don't do that enough, you're going to affect them emotionally.
You're gonna kill them, like quite literally. If you don't hold your baby in the first year, they'll die.
I'm talking even like later on. Let's get past the newborn stage. Like say like 2, 3, 4, 5. Like holding them all the time, them crying, and you holding them and coddle them. You know, I think you definitely should be emotionally there for them and stuff like that. There's got to be a balance. I feel like that's another balance thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, so can I piggyback on this? I just want to throw something out there. And here's another fun, exciting thing. I've been talking to some like different people on behind the scenes things, and they've been asking about like doctors and psychologists and therapists and social workers. We've been talking about coming on the show. So like this would be a perfect segment even for them to even speak to this. But what I will say about, you know, that dynamic of like just like spoiling, and now I'm going on a whole tangent here, G. I'm going to go on a whole tangent. I apologize. It's really about, again, the reinforcement, but then just even before that, like it's the parent, dude. Like at the end of the day, you gotta like just take ownership. That's on you. Like so what I mean by that, I'll paint you a different scenario. Like let's say I left this cup out, right? And I know my kid is at a certain age where they're gonna knock it over. It's gonna happen. Now, when they knock it over, do I get mad at them? No, or do I just look at myself? And then that's to me like maybe on a different perspective on it. But yeah, now I'm just going into a whole nother rant here, Jane. Don't mind
Oh,
me.
Josh told me I'm echoing. Is it better now?
How's that
Let's
spell?
see.
Well, I
I don't
might
know.
be like too close.
Hi, Pineapple. How are you?
Hi, hi.
I don't know why there would be an echo. There shouldn't be that big of an echo.
How about now?
I don't know. I'm waiting for him to respond back. Maybe my mic is too close to me. Here, move my mic back a little bit.
Good
But
multitasking.
I definitely think that there's something going on with like the way you parent and respond to consequences. So, do you want good multitasking? Thanks, Pineapple. Um, but I definitely feel like there's good oh my god, now I said
Good
multitasking.
multitasking.
Yeah, good multitasking skills. Thanks there, Pineapple. You get me all confused. Oh, my mic. Hello.
Hey, hey, hey.
Let's see. Babe, is this better? I'm talking. I don't know if you're listening.
Yeah.
But what was I now? I completely lost my train of thought. Consequences with actions. I think you're definitely gonna like as far as spoiling a kid, that happens later on in life. You don't hold, like you said, you don't hold them accountable, or you don't give them consequences for their action. You're always there to pick them up when they fall. Don't get me wrong, you should always be there for your kid, but there's got to be consequences. I'm sorry. You can't just like let them skate by life without having some type of consequence.
Yeah, so that's what I even tell the girls, like, right off the jump. I'm like, hey, you could do that. Remember when you guys were even on, I'm like, you could do that, but there's a consequence to the decision you're going to make. What do you think? And I think that's maybe a better way. Instead of even punishing them prior to it happening, asking them how can it weigh out? And then after they've made their choice, being there saying, hey, you see how that turned out? Now, what could you have done differently? Like, let's say I don't know, let's take like a personal scenario. Like I go out, I have a curfew, I sneak out, I don't come back in on time. And my parents find me the next day, they confront me. And it can go a few different ways. You could punish, like take away the phone, take away the car, take away whatever. That's one dynamic. Or we could say, hey, what happened? Why did that happen? What could have happened if it would have went really bad? And what did happen? And then what can we do differently in the future? And then obviously still having a consequence there. But I always tell the girls, like, dude, everything you do, there's going to be a consequence. But let's see if we can break it down to understand it too. But again, not a doctor, so what do I know? You know?
I mean, we're not doctors, but at the same time, I don't know. I guess from personal experience, learning when a child or should I say grown adult does consequences or does something really bad and doesn't have any consequences for it, that they're just gonna keep doing that thing
For sure.
over and over and over again. And whether that has to do with anything with you holding them too much, let's bring it back. Too much is holding a baby. I don't know. Like I don't know, like I don't know, but I guess it is a myth. But hey, you live, you learn type situation, right?
That's true, kid.
So now, Michael, you're picking a myth now.
I know I'm looking through a couple right now, and I kind of want to throw one out of left field for you.
Uh-oh.
I'm either a George Washington one, which I think could be interesting, but I'm a horrible historian, or like I'm bad with history, so I wouldn't expect anyone to know this.
Let's see.
Or, oh, this is a good one. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one. You get cramps if you go swimming right after you eat. Myth or not?
I feel like it's a total myth. I feel like I definitely read something somewhere where that is a total myth. Guys in the chat, let us know what you guys think that things that we're saying are facts. We'll give you a minute to respond before we actually say the answers. If you want, Pineapple, thank you for joining us. Guys, again, we want you to talk and interact with us in the chat. Yes, we have products down below, but we told you guys this before that this podcast episodes every week are more about interacting with you guys. We're not solely focused on the products. We do have everything we're using in the carousel down below, just because these are the products we're using during the live stream from our cameras and so on and so forth. But we love you guys to interact too. Join us. Let us know what you think. So yeah, so swimming after you eat, does it really cause cramps? No, I don't agree.
Boom. All right, so let's read it. So they're saying myth as well, so they're agreeing with you. Though it is commonly held belief that your muscles will cramp should you swim right after eating. That just isn't true. Remember how many times parents said it? And there's like a bunch of things we can go into that parents said, right? Body requires extra blood in order to digest, but not nearly enough to prevent the muscles in your arms and legs from working as they should. And then let's see. What'd you say over here, Mina? So, ooh, there's one. Webcam 106. Gotcha. Yeah, webcams. And like Gina said, we have a bunch of like different camera options, different things like that in the chat as well. I also, again, I'm about to throw on my leg massagers just because I want to put them on, and they have a lightning deal, so it's making me want to put them on.
Are you really going to get up right now and put on your leg massages?
No, I have them right here, but I don't even think I'm going to put them on.
It'll probably be a little bit too loud, not going to lie.
Yeah, so I'm just saying I'm tempted to, especially since I saw the deal. Anywho's, with that being said, so we got that component of it. Now, this is the other piece. I'm curious, like, to hear from you, Gene, to hear from everybody in the chat. Where do you think this myth comes from? I mean, it kind of said it a little bit, or maybe we can do that for all the myths. Like, where do we think they come from just in the first place?
I think it's parents who want to manipulate their children and tell them that, like, hey, you're going to get a stomachache if you go in the pool and right after you eat. So how about you eat some more food, sit down, like a kid who was like wanting to go right into the pool and not sit down and eat. I feel like that was just something they told their kid to stop them from going in the pool right after they eat or finish their meal. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, dude. I'm definitely with you on that. And I think that's a very interesting component of like just the dynamic of parents and kids, hey, kids don't know any, like if you think about it, right? We're all just kids that have more life experience now and that our bodies have aged, but at some point you don't know anything. And then you realize the people you were turning to that you thought knew everything, they didn't know anything either. They just like had more life experience than you. So they kind of had some idea of stuff, but no one really knows on most of the stuff, you know?
You know what's crazy too is that I was watching, of course, The Real Housewives.
Yeah, Real Housewives.
I was watching The Real Housewives of New Jersey. It's my guilty pleasure. Don't judge me. And she was talking about, hi, Tony. Happy Wednesday.
Tony.
Actually, you see your comment this time. Hi, Tony. And she's like, oh, it's going to be my 44th birthday party or something and blah, blah, blah.
Party.
I've been on this earth for 44 years. In that moment, I had like a blank stare moment at the TV. Like, oh my God, like they've been on this earth. They have 44 years of life experience. So thinking about my husband's turning 40 this year. Sorry, Josh, I told everyone your age. It's okay. But you have 40, let that sink in, 40 years of life experience or experiences of life, however you want to put it, on this earth. So you would think like, that's crazy. Like I have 30, I'm 31, right? Yeah, I'm 31 years of life experience. And to me, that doesn't even sound like a lot, but it is. If you think about it, I don't know everything, but that's a lot.
You know what I like to think about too? Then think about, let's say you have a habit, or let's say you have a behavior pattern that you've been doing. And then think of how many years out of the 31 years of your life, or in my life, 34 years, or anyone's life, or Josh, like if we take the number, like, oh, dude, I've been doing this like 20 years, that's 50% of your life. And then trying to make changes based on whatever percentage of life you've been doing a certain behavior pattern. It even goes back even to like some of the other like neuro stuff and all that fun. It takes a long time to even change certain things. But then interestingly enough, think of how little 21 days is, how short 21 days can be to change a behavior pattern if you really like dedicate yourself to it. I think that's also an interesting component. But having said that, and before we go on a whole tangent, do you got a myth? Are we kicking into another one? Or are we waiting? Because I want to hear from you guys in the chat. Like, I want to know, even
they want us to bust for them, or any questions about that out there.
Tony, you got any good myths? Or like, I'm trying to think of like, again, we could talk about the pregnancy ones, like if you have a lot of heartburn, or
let's see. What's one? Oh, okay. So I'll do the one that I was kind of talking to you before about, Mike. So have you ever had your parents tell you you're eating a sandwich, right? You eat crust, right? Sharks don't get cancer, Nolan. Okay.
Whoa, Nolan dropping a great question.
I have no idea. Mike, you want to do the research on that, and then I'm
checking it.
I'll talk about my myth while you check for that one. So the myth I was going for is that my mother always told me as a kid that all the nutrients in bread is in the crust, and that I have to eat the crust to like grow and be smart and my brain to grow and all that good stuff. So I looked it up. That's 100% false. Bread is made from the same substance. It's all dough, the same ingredients throughout. There's no like more nutrients that grow in the crust. So that is a complete lie that I've been told my entire life. So
going back to that, like, just influence on behavior patterns. Like, come on, just do it because I said so, kind of a deal. But also sometimes people just don't know.
Tony goes, I just finished 8 reps of push-ups. I noticed Mike is into fitness too. Yes. We can't say
Tony.
time he says the 100%. He has to stop what he's doing and drop down and do how many push-ups?
5 every time I say it. So last time I said it twice, I had to do 10, you know, give a little. Sometimes I know I'm going to say it and I just start doing push-ups as an anticipation, especially when I'm doing a podcast with Chuck. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm definitely going to say this at least 2 times. So let me just get 10 out of the way now.
So what's our shark and cancer conclusion?
So I'm seeing 2 different things immediately that pop up on the first page of Google. Actually, this is Bing. I'm using Bing. I'm not even using Google because I have my mic. Anyways, point is that this is saying that they found a tumor in a great white, but in another article, they're saying that sharks are less likely or that have a reduced incident rate of developing cancer, but they can still get it. So sharks maybe across the board have a lower rate of it, but apparently they can still get it. Dude, I'll be honest with you. I wonder who even asked these questions because I never would even thought to ask that. So I'm assuming like a marine biologist is the one that's like, where did that even come from? That's what I want to know now.
Yeah, Nolan, what made you think of that? That is such a cool like random myth that I guess piggyback riding off of Nolan's question or myth, should I say. Is it true that the #1 cause of cancer is stress?
Hold on, let me. #1 cancer. Let's check. Okay. I'm trying to look for like depending on the site here.
I'm gonna have cancer by the time I'm like 60. No, by next year.
Wait, and you were saying that it's breast cancer? What'd you say?
Any cancer. Like I heard the #1 cause of cancer is stress.
Oh, stress. Okay. I completely missed, like, what's the #1 cancer? So cause of cancer. Okay. That one I think is going to be a complicated, I don't know if we're going to have a one-shot answer.
So, or just Google, does stress, is stress the #1 leading cause of cancer?
I'm looking it up. Include chemicals, carcinogens, tobacco smoke.
Goes, when I went fishing, my grandfather told me stories about it. I wanted to see if it was true, if he was crazy or not. I don't think he's crazy. It just might have been one of those wise tales that, like I said, my mother told me that all the nutrition in bread is in the crust, so I would eat it. So maybe it was just like one of those wise tales. But it seems like they are like less likely to get cancer, not that they're immune to cancer.
Boom, what Gina said. So now I'm just looking it up from the American Cancer Society. We've got like what causes cancer, common causes. I'm trying to look through it to see. Because again, I also want to give like somewhat of like a reputable source, depending on also what maybe you consider a reputable source.
Reputable, schmaputable.
Yeah.
Bestlife.com seems like my #1 source tonight. So let's see here. Hold on. I'm going to do a quick search on. Awesome. I wish I could stay longer. Goodbye. Oh, Tony switched over to on. Hey, Tony. Mike, what is the most push-ups have done in a day? My goal is 1,000.
Bruh. Ah, man, that's a great goal. But I'll be honest with you, probably no more than 250. And that's like broken up. I would say probably it was in Thailand, because in Thailand, like they have very consistent and I would call primitive, for lack of a better term, training, meaning it's not very technologically advanced or like high-tech programming. There's not a tremendous amount of equipment. So like they're going to make you run, you're going to hit the bag, you're going to hit pads, you're going to do push-ups, you're going to do pull-ups, stuff like that. So I'm trying to think, if I did two classes, maybe we would do like 50 to 100 push-ups a class, maybe broken up throughout random rounds. And like, I would say no more than 250. So like 250 or less would be my best number. The one thing I would say, it's great to do like 1,000 push-ups, or if you saw, here's another myth that we should look at too. So I forget the name of the chef, but there's this like chef that was around, I think from Obama up to Trump. And then he like moved and went into a different path. Or maybe he's still the presidential chef, but he says he does like 3,000 push-ups every morning, or a certain number that's the number that's associated with like military suicide or veteran suicide. But you gotta be careful with that. Like, volume's great, but when you do too much volume at too high of a rate, if you don't have good technique, and a lot of times when you're doing that many, you're like skipping on technique sometimes for some people, you could risk injury. But that's maybe another myth in and of itself, is like overuse or like using it at a high output can lead to injury, which may not necessarily be the case depending on what we're talking about. But anyways, hopefully that answers the question, Tony. Sorry I went on a whole rant there, homie.
Yeah, no, Mike's not doing 1,000 push-ups every day.
Nah, dude. I mean, if I really needed to, I could. Like, I could do 100 push-ups an hour for 10 hours. We could do that. I just like, I'm not going to do that. I'll be
That
honest.
sounds stressful.
It's all relative, I guess.
So I think we're passing on the stress and myth, cancer myth.
So, all right. So, yeah, going back to that, I'm going to say that it can be a cause of cancer. I know that, but it's not. I don't think it's the number one cause of cancer.
Well, I looked up according to cancer.gov.
There you
Sounds
go.
reputable.
That's a good source.
Sounds reputable. For many cancer survivors, their worst nightmares are coming back. Cancer started growing again. Scientists don't know how this happened. A new study suggests that stress hormones may wake up dormant cancer cells that remain in the body after treatment. In experiments in mice, stress hormones triggers the chain reaction in the immune cells, blah, blah, blah. But if you are stressed, your cancer is going to come back. Blah, blah, blah. It just basically says it could. It doesn't say that it 100% does. So
it for sure can, though. But it also does, and this is it's usually not just a one thing. It's usually a combination. It's like a ripple effect. Because guess what? If you're stressed, I'm willing to bet if you're stressed and not properly dealing with it, you're not getting enough sleep, you're not eating a certain way, you're eating a lot of sugars, you're taking in a lot of caffeine or stimulants, probably not getting as active as you should be, and all of those factors compounding together really is where there'd be a lot more risk and weight to cancer, really any morbidity issue or chance of dying of some kind of disease versus if you're just stressed by itself. Because stress is kind of a good thing and an acute one-off piece. There's a reason we have the response mechanisms that we do in our body, but having it all the time, like that's the other thing you always got to ask, like, why does this mechanism exist? Because it wouldn't exist if it wasn't there for a purpose, or maybe it's a lingering ripple effect from prior evolutionary days. But at this point, I don't actually know 100% I just did it. I'm gonna have to get out some push-ups.
No, do not get up, Michael. Do not get up.
My
there you go, air push-ups.
I got you, Chuck. I'm gonna owe push-ups at the end of this. It is just like, yeah, I got distracted now that I was doing push-ups. Where are we going with that?
I have no idea. I think you were. Wow. We have the words ADHD, guys. Ever like, can you tell that like the smallest thing just makes us go left and completely loses our train of thought? We are
what, push-ups.
What? Push-ups? Let me stop my whole entire train of thought and where I was going with this to now go on a whole rant about push-ups. But I guess we could do another myth now at this point.
Let's get it. All right. So are you going or am I going?
Up to you. I have some parenting ones if you want to do one, and then we'll go into more parenting ones.
All right. I'll do one, then we'll hit parenting. So I got dogs only see in black and white.
Ooh, I feel that is true.
All right, let's see what it says. Is that a dog? Was that like Jab in the background?
No, that was actually a police car.
Oh, okay.
I heard a police car outside my house. I'm like, what the hell is that?
I heard it. Something's going down. So it says, no, your pup isn't seeing the world in black and white. Veterinarian Barbara Royal explained to the Huffington Post or Huff Post that dogs don't see all of the colors that we see, but they can actually distinguish between colors. But that doesn't mean that they don't see in black and white. It just means they can see shades and they can distinguish between shades, maybe. I don't know, but she's saying that they can distinguish between colors, but that they may not actually see all of the colors that we see. So I feel like that's not a very clear answer. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's any real way to prove it because you can't see through dogs' eyes. No.
I feel like you could hook up some kind of brain monitoring and like compare. That's a good point. I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to do it. Like we got to get a neurologist up in here or like a veterinarian that also is a specialist.
Would a neurologist know about a pet's brain?
I guess a veterinarian neurologist, whatever that would be called, like neurologist for pets, because that definitely exists. I'm kind of here.
What does that mean?
Yeah,
you half in, half out?
Yeah, what do you mean? Are you like spacing out? You getting distracted? What do you think? You're just hanging out and saying, hey, I see you though, Pineapple. We appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
Yeah.
So my next myth. So what I have here from one of the parenting things is, where is it? Every bad behaviors requires a strong consequences, and easy babies turn into difficult children.
Oh,
What do you think?
I don't know, man. There's an interesting component to that. I'm gonna say myth, but I also want to just throw in that I feel like easy. So the equation I have here is like easy lives make for weak people, and weak people make for hard times. And it goes into that old saying of like, strong men make easy times, easy times make weak people make hard times make strong people, and it's like this ongoing cycle.
Okay, that sounds very technical, and I kind of lost you there, but
What?
I follow you. Oh, so say it again.
So if I'm hearing the myth right, it's saying that an easy baby is going to be a difficult child because they've
Yes.
had an easy and there's no discipline or anything like that. Is that kind of what it's saying?
No, I think it's meaning like if they're an easygoing baby, like they don't cry a lot, they're not fussy, they sleep easy. So if you have an easy time with them as a baby, they're going to be difficult growing up.
I mean, maybe. I still say myth though.
Let's see.
What does it say?
Countless
What does it say?
people will tell you that with great gusto, no less, that your smiley, happy baby who's slept through the night at 6 weeks is destined to be a terror as they get older. But that is not true at all. Some people, some kids just have really easy personalities, but that doesn't mean they'll be harder as they get older. There are plenty that are super easy in the beginning and stay super easy.
Nice.
And let's see about the consequence part. Um, that is a complete myth. You do not need to have extreme consequences for bad behavior. Let's see. What do they say? If there are ground rules that have not been pre-established between the parent and child, they are not really misbehaving. So back to what a little bit of Mike said before with the whole cup on that you leave it there. You can't hold a child to a standard that hasn't been established. There's no learning there. It's just about having some kind of control or authority. Ah, I really like that. I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, no, I think that's definitely to that point. Like it's again, it goes to that point, man. Like I see it with the girls now. Like for oh, dude, perfect example. So see how this camera is set up? I've let Lena and Tessa play with another tripod that I have. It's broken now at this point. I never put cameras on it, but it looks like the tripod. Speaking of tripods, I'll highlight this one and the camera setup that I have. It looks like the one that I have right now with the nice Sony camera on it. So they'll pick up the old one and play with it and whatever. So then Lena over here she knocked into it and it almost knocked over. And I like almost first, I was like, whoa, and I just grabbed it and I realized I'm like, hey, so this is my bed, Lena. I didn't tell you this, but this is a very expensive fragile, like it can break easily camera. I didn't call it fragile because she's I use that word and I just explain obviously because otherwise she doesn't know what the hell that means. Not yet. But that's the other thing too. Like I also like to use certain words but then explain them because then they're getting exposed to it instead of just being like, oh, you're too dumb, you won't understand this. Like, no, they'll pick it up. Kids are smart, man. Like they have a lot going on. So anyways, I think exactly that. You have to explain to them like, yo, we don't. And then that's even going back to like other topics we've talked about in the past, like, hey, this is why you shouldn't be out past 10 o'clock. It's not because I'm mean and I don't want you to go out and have fun. It's because X, Y, and Z reason. Like troubles after that time. B, you're getting out of a good sleep routine. You won't wake up. You have an important thing tomorrow, or whatever the reasons are. Explain it to them. Communicate, and then they understand. And then they have it. And then once they agree upon it, then that's like a different course of action, I think.
I think the fact that the article mentioned that kids are learning, so literally they have no idea what boundaries or rules or what they're supposed to do. So if you don't tell them, how can you have expectations on their behavior towards that certain thing? So I think it'd be different, like if, say, for example, you left that cup on the table and you said, Lena, please don't touch this. This daddy's, I'm going to come right back and drink it. And then she looks you dead in your eyes and goes, "Papa."
Yeah.
Then that's some bad behavior and doesn't deserve a consequence. Yes. But if you didn't say anything and you left it up there and you didn't say like, this is mine, please don't touch, how mad can you really get at a child for exploring and being curious? Because that's what they're going to do. You haven't, like, you're setting yourself up for failure with that one. To me, in my feelings that if you try to tell a kid that like, oh my God, you were so wrong for doing that. How can you be so clumsy? Don't touch mommy and daddy's stuff. I told you that before. They don't know the cup is yours.
Or or any dynamic of that. Like, exactly. 100. It goes back to that point of like, dude, we're all just like blank slates that don't know anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're just life experience. So you're looking at a baby or a child or whatever that has no reference point prior to that, especially if they're in a new environment. Like, it's like the first time you go out to a new restaurant or a new place, like, unless there's and like, honestly, we try and do a good job of communicating like, hey, when we go into this place, this is how we act in a restaurant. Like, that was always something, dude. And I'm curious, like, how you feel about this too. Like, I remember growing up as a kid, like, I would not behave at home in certain situations, but anytime I go to a friend's house or I go to somebody else's house or I go to a restaurant, I would take pride in like the parents or whoever it was come back to my parents and be like, yo, your kid's well behaved and whatnot. Because then, to me, it's like I could understand the switch there, but then that's even on the other side. It's like then I'm purposefully not listening at home, and my parents weren't super pissed about it. Like, all right, at least you're behaving elsewhere. But then, like, from my eyes, I'm like, so you know how to behave. You're just choosing not to at home now, which is a whole different thing.
Yeah, and I also think that piggybacks off of your relationship with your parents. Now you're gonna look at the issues into why you're acting like that at home, but not anywhere else. Is it because you're trying to be defiant to your parents? Are you now trying to stick it to the man type situation?
Yeah.
Like, what is the reasoning behind you doing this? Which again, I think it goes down to that relationship. No, you can't do this because I said so, which we already established in our other episodes that's not proper parenting. And yes, you can say no, I'm saying no for this, but say why. It's not that hard to give your kid a reason. I don't know, like tell your kid why you're saying no. Why is that so hard? Not because I said so.
And I'm the parent figure and respecting it. Or like, here's another thing that I think it's also cultural too, right? So this is what's interesting about like sociology and just society perspectives on things is like, depending on where you were raised, the time, whatever. So from a cultural standpoint, if it's like, hey, you never even leave the house, right? You all stay in the same house, you all stay in the same place, you never leave. And then just doing that as another kind of reference point. There's so many aspects that are like, oh, well, this is how we raise our kids. Because then it's not just as the parent, you raising the children, it's like grandparents involved too, right? There's other people you may not have control over, and they're influencing what's going on. And then putting in myths, like, for example, you're going fishing with your grandson, you're like, hey, by the way, sharks don't get cancer. Just a fun fact. So you should eat lots of shark fin soup because they don't get cancer. You'll be less likely. I'm not saying that your grandpa said that, Nolan, or if you're still here, but like, just that's where like those kind of things can even come from, which I think is interesting too.
Yeah, you know what's I don't know what I just had a random thought, and I don't know why I thought of this.
Thoughts.
No, because talking about like kids and doing their things and telling them and explaining things to them, now my mind is kind of just going on a tangent. That
Nice.
me and Josh were watching Euphoria. Do you watch Euphoria?
Bro, what is with that show, man? Like, Ashley started watching this, and I'm watching one of the episodes where it's like, I'm like, dude, what is happening right now?
So are you? Did you just start watching it?
I'm like 2 episodes in, or like 3 episodes in. Like,
first season?
Yeah, the first season. I think, I don't know. I just know, can I tell you what's going on? Spoiler alert for people, just to help share what's going on. Okay. So Rue's the main character, right?
Yeah.
So Rue just got back from rehab like 4 days ago. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at. And then she goes to a party, and then her friend goes to meet up with some dude. What the hell? And then that dude is the dad of the other guy that's at the party that freaks out on her. And like, is that ringing any bells?
It is. But she also comes back from a note. Yeah, I think that's the beginning of the first season when Rue comes right out of rehab, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're doing so good," and she like relapses instantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So that is the first season. So it's a really, really good show, and I don't want to spoil anything because we're caught up. We're into the second season already. Ooh. And it is so good. One, do you know, is produced by Drake.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's produced by Drake. He's one of the main producers on the show.
Nice.
And also, it's a very like well-written, well-directed show, and it's based on someone's actual life. So, and also, I want you to think when you watch the show, think of Lauren. This show,
yeah,
is my friend Lauren's life, like to a T. Like this was her throughout high school, like everything. So the outcome to this show, I feel like I know already, whether I do or don't, but let's put it that way. One is super triggering. There's actually been trigger warnings for the show,
Yeah.
especially with how relatable it is when it comes to drug and substance abuse and everything like that. And the other night, me and Josh were watching the new episode, and I had a complete, utter anxiety panic attack, like sobbing, crying, full blown snot out of the nose, hysterical panic attack. And I had no idea why, like at first, like I just no idea why. And then like I think I started thinking about like my kid, and this could be a real life situation for her when she goes to high school, like being exposed to X, Y, and Z. Because this is now how high school, look how they're dressing. Like when you get deep into this show, you'll see how some of the girls are dressing.
Oh yeah.
And seeing how some of the characters are and how more mature they are
Yeah.
as 11th and 12th graders, because the way they're acting, like maybe we were just as seniors or leaving high school was more of the things they were going through. But full blown crying, and then also having the discussion of when do we tell our kids about addiction? When do we, because he had 100% good point, is that, let them be a kid for as long as possible. Why ruin their childhood? And like, tell them all the things that are going, even as far as going on with our family, addiction and everything like that. At one point, to me, I felt that telling them as soon as possible was like, the day she could understand this stuff, tell her. But he's like, but do you want to ruin that childhood for her and have that hold that inside as well? Like in the sense of like, now your family has drug problems or addiction or blah, 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 or anything, or like what's wrong with my family type situation, because I said as early as middle school or like 6th grade, we should have this conversation with her. And he's like, I think we should hold off a little bit, which I think he's not wrong either at the same time. I had to look at it from a different side. I think I was in the midst of having a complete meltdown. So I'm like, I want her to know, I don't want to hide anything from her. Cause that's how I felt my childhood was, is that everything was hidden from me. Oh, yeah. I lived in this fairy tale land, or, drug. Yeah, of course I knew drugs are bad, but it was never openly discussed as, I know we completely went left with this topic, but I was curious to like, what do you think about that? And I really like thought about it in my head.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to where we could tie it into a myth, but I was also saying we should just go off on a whole rant here because it's entertaining, and that's what we're here for on Wednesdays. Yeah. We get to talk and chat, and if you guys,
whatever we want, it's our show.
Yeah, and if you want to corral us back, hit us in the chat. Corral us back in the chat. Otherwise, we're just gonna go off, And so my thoughts on that is I'm with you. Like I immediately when you say that is like I want to tell them ASAP. Like and here's my perspective on it. I think of it this way. I want to educate the girls and all my kids and anyone I like have an involvement with from a childhood perspective, to just give them as much information as I can, to give them tools and then let them decide how they want to apply those tools. Like for example, transparently, if like my parents are like, hey, don't do Coke because we really liked Coke and it's bad. Oh, what's up, Migs? I see you, homie. So Migs, by the way, is on my chat. That's Miguel, the one that I sent us a group chat about. I'll talk to him about just to go over some more of the deets of what we got going down. But anyways, what's up, dude? Thanks for dropping by. Migs is a perfect example. So Migs, we've openly talked about addiction with you and alcoholism and things like that and going one day at a time. So we're kind of talking about this dynamic. I say the way I look at it with the girls, it's like I bring them into the gym and I expose them to like training and I cook with them. And so when they're old enough to have that conversation, and like really in a couple of years, in my opinion, like even like already in another year or two, because Lena's like, you could see she's processing things a lot more effectively with the way she clumps some like information together and just saying like, hey dude, like even sugar, like I talked to her, like sugar's addictive. Like if you have too much of this, you're going to want more of it. Like I already kind of talked to her about it. And then where I tie it in is saying, hey, like not even saying, hey, we have this addiction issue in our family. Like everyone's pretty much an addict. Or, like there's drugs on both sides and all these things and addictive behavior patterns. But like, do you want to live your life like that? Do you want your tummy to hurt every morning, like after you've eaten all that candy or like, because lately we've all been sick. Like that's why I'm all congested and whatnot. So I got my tea and stuff in the carousel, even put my caramel tea. But it's like, dude, yeah. So we have like these honey fruit pops that like help your throat. But she ate like literally her intestine ate like a whole bag in like 2 days. So it's like 20 pops, maybe 16 pops, and they're like 5 calories a pop. So it's not even the calories per se, and it's good and great. It's just like, dude, you can't just have that. And I know it makes your throat feel better, but we have to like look at why we're doing this or what's going on there. But yeah.
But now let's bring it down to a deeper, like as far as The members in our family who have addiction, do you feel telling them as soon as possible that they have an addiction?
Oh,
That's
dude.
That's
Yeah,
what more so not to tell them about what addiction is, because of course they're going to learn about it. And he said they're going to learn about it in school. They're going to give them,
yeah,
but I learned about that in school, and and I even said point blank to him, I feel like the only reason I didn't go down the path of an addict is because I meant you. And I feel like that is the only reason, the only sole purpose that I didn't go down it, because he wasn't into that. He only smoked weed. I don't know if I can say that on here. I smoked
Ooh.
vapes. And
Took some medicine.
no, he didn't do anything else. That
No, I'm
Josh,
just saying
yeah,
that's we just swap
medical
those words out for.
medical purposes,
Yeah,
medicinal purposes.
there you go.
But so I kind of changed my lifestyle and thought like, okay, well, I'm dating someone who's not into that. I'm not gonna, be into that. And it kind of steered me in a good path. And I thank him all the time, and I tell him all the time that I am so grateful for that. But I was out partying almost every weekend. And when was it going to go from every weekend to every day or every so on? All my friends, I had to distance myself from Lauren because I saw the path she was going down. But I distanced myself from Lauren because I was with Josh. Would I have distanced myself from Lauren if I wasn't dating Josh? You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah, that's a good point.
So, and now what path would I have gone down with Lauren if that was the case and scenario?
Yeah.
But long story short, now again, back to what I was asking is that how do you feel about telling her about certain people in your family?
Oh, yeah, dude. All right, so that's a great. All right, and now I more clearly understand. That's a very layered topic. So one thing I'm just going to share. Mig shared something in the chat. So
Yeah.
I believe as an addict, it's important to have an early, young age conversation with your children so they understand about their addictive genetics. So that makes sense to like what we were talking about. So now, particularly with personal, like imagine like family members that are. So here's the thing. Like I will bring it up where I think it's relevant in the sense of like transparently, like this is no secret, like my dad and some of the challenges he has, and myself, like, or even like, not even like just the different dynamics in our family, right? Like I'll tell her for the people she's going to have relationships with and saying, hey, you want to know why, you don't say grandpa's by yourself or like whatever. That's a whole different, but I 100% will tell her. And like, this is the thing I will not do. I won't really bring it up and make it a point until it becomes something that has to be a conversation. Or what I'm thinking is if like, she starts showing behavior patterns, like she starts like drinking or something, or like starts doing something that's abnormal, atypical, and be like, hey, by the way, fun fact, like that's one thing I appreciate about my parents, man. Like my parents, when I was very young, when I say very young, like maybe in my early teens, late like preteen stages, they're like, hey dude, like listen, just can be transparent with you. In like the 80s and stuff, like we did coke, we love coke. Coke's a great like fun time, but it's really dangerous and it's very scary, and it's like don't mess around with it. Like you will like it. I'm just telling you, if you do it, you'll like it. And I've literally never done coke because of that, amongst other things. But like, so my point to all of that and how I look at it with the kids is telling people like, hey, even my own personal stories, like, hey, dad, like I had an issue with pain pills. Like when I was like first hurt my back, dude, there's a 6 to 8 month window where like it was like a slippery slope. And I'll share those stories, and I'll probably start with myself first before I start saying other people in our family until it's relevant, and they're going to start to see them. Because like there's some people like she's never going to have relationships with, like, to be honest with you. Like it's just I'm not going to have to worry about that from a one-on-one experience, but eventually it'll come up in other family dynamics, and then I'll give her the information.
Do you feel like in middle school, is like when do you, if say there's no incident that happens that makes you want to bring this up, do you feel having it early on to prevent it should be, or do you wait for an incident to happen? Like you said, oh, if she starts drinking, I'll have the conversation. Do you wait for her to start drinking?
So what I kind of want to wait for is when she starts saying like, hey, I want to go hang out with my friends by myself, or like there's that dynamic, probably middle school, high school range, where like there's that dynamic of like, and this even goes like on a slightly different note, like even like me and Ashley are talking about like gun safety. Like before she starts hanging out at other people's houses, I want to go over like, hey dude, if they have alcohol there, like you're not drinking. And like, if you are, here's some of the consequences and here's where it could come into play. And look at people in our lives. This is where I started or where they started, or because that's where I think it's helpful and relevant, is to share it as a precautionary tale early on, so that before, because imagine if if future family, like our family, you take some of the family members and we went to their childhood and we took future them and brought them back to them, be like, hey, you want to just sit down and listen to what future you has to say about some of the upcoming life experiences and choices you're going to make. Maybe it wouldn't make a difference, honestly, but I think providing them, saying like, hey, this is very real and it's very close to home and it's people you love that might have this struggle as well that you'd be surprised by. So make choices accordingly, you know?
I think for me, and I'm going to read, Pineapple wrote something in the chat that I'm going to read in a second. I think for me is one, I was having an emotional breakdown when I had this anxiety attack of the fact of, I think I was also very emotional about Lauren too, knowing that like I didn't do more to prevent it or anything that happened and stuff like that, that I kind of just said like, all right, you're going down a bad path. I can't associate with you. I don't think, I think in the episode, one of her friends goes to the mother and tells her what's going on with Rue. And I won't tell you at what point this happens, but it made me, I guess, feel like I should have told, I don't know if that would have changed anything, but I never went to the mom and said anything that Lauren was going through this. You know, maybe if we had to talk about, like, maybe if someone had to talk with her early on instead of just brushing it off, like that's to me, like, what is the right steps? How do you approach it appropriately? And I think Josh said it too, that like, you can't, like, just because you have addiction in your family doesn't mean you're going to turn out to be an addict. You can't think like that. You can't think the worst case scenario. And I'm like, you're right. But at the same time, I just worry about what are the right steps to prevent it and make them aware of like what runs in our family, you know, and stuff like that. Because Josh has, you know, family members on his side who had addiction as well and issues as well. And he had a really rough upbringing and witnessed things he probably shouldn't have, as far as drugs, parents doing drugs and stuff like that. And it affected him very badly. He's like, he feels like, I think his childhood was almost taken from him, or he saw this stuff too early. I think that's where his side comes in the sense of, hey, you know, I think this is too early to tell our kid about this. Wait till they're older. Because I said as far as like middle school, like 13 years old, you know, that we should have this conversation with them. And again, then I said, I'm like, you know what, we'll see how she is. It depends on the child too. Like, we'll see, maybe it is too early to have that conversation. Maybe you're right, you know? Yeah. And at the time I didn't agree, you know, because I was like, literally snot falling out. I was doing a lot. I even know it too. I could see him getting overwhelmed by it. And like, I felt bad that I was going through it. And Pineapple said, hey, if your friend, I think the best thing to do is encourage your kids to be their own person. Don't be a follower. Hey, if your friend does something bad, you don't follow them. Always let them know the consequences of things. And I think that's another thing too. I want her to know consequences and, hey, be your own person. You don't feel pressured to do anything. And I want that open. I think to me, the biggest thing is that I know it's not going to happen with everything, that open line of communication. Like, come to me. Please, please come to me with anything you feel, need, or whatever.
And then if we go back to what's like the motivating factor there, like why, if we found our, like, go back to your childhood or even like now maybe, and like for myself, I know this is my personal experience, so I don't want to like project it to anyone else, but a lot of times insecurities or like choices stem from insecurities, right? So like if I want to go along, be a follower, or do this situation or not speak out, it's because I'm insecure about something and I don't want to draw attention to that, or I want to have energy or attention placed elsewhere, or maybe I don't feel like I get enough attention. I want certain type of attention on me, and understanding that becomes important. So like I go back to that, like even so you say like, hey, we have genetic predisposition to addiction. So, but there's also, we have genetic predisposition to heart disease. Like Poppy had like what, like 4 heart attacks or something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so to me, it's just another piece of like health history and saying, hey, I'm going to apply this. Like, I look at it that way. Like, would I tell the girls like Poppy had a heart attack? I'll probably tell them eventually if like they wonder about why we make certain food choices. Like, hey, girls, because fun fact, like my Umi had diabetes, died of cancer, all these things, and like Poppy had how many heart attacks? Like, we have predispositions to things if you don't take care of certain choices. And to me, you know, drugs and alcohol and things like that are a part of that as well. But I think also to Josh's point is like where there's trauma involved, or where there's like, you can have a conversation, but it doesn't have to be traumatic. Hopefully, maybe it will be, depending on what the situation is. But that's to me too. It's like, how do we I just share this information and educate them. And now with technology, that's what's so crazy. Like, there's so many things, like even just between the internet and like devices. Like, dude, like Lena has a tablet already. You know, she's 3. She's about to be 4. She's got a tablet. Like Tessa sees me on my phone. She knows how to go to like open my phone and play music. Like, I mean, she can like play through apps and find stuff. And like, so it's a matter of like, even with that, even with technology, like how do we see that coming into play? And I think to Pineapple's point, even to Migs, what you were saying before, of just trying to educate our kids and trying to empower them. And if they feel secure and confident with who they are as people, they won't feel like they need to be followed. Like I tell Lena, and like me and Ashley tell Lena and Tessa this all the time, like you are strong, you are confident, you are independent, you are valuable, you are loved. Like, and
I do that every day. I say those words to her.
Exactly. And then having the kids repeat that back too. That's the big thing I like to do with them is like repeat it back too. Like say, hey, I am strong. And then she flexes and she's like, I'm smart, or like whatever it is, like I'm beautiful, or like I care. I'm a caring person. I share. Like having her say it about herself so it empowers her and she starts to understand that. And I'm telling you, from like a young age, I feel like it makes just a drastic impact. Don't you yawn at me, Jay. You're doing good for like the whole hour.
I know. I was doing really good. And I think because I finished my tea. Oh no, I have a sip left. I lied.
Ooh, tea.
But I agree just figuring out that balance. And I think it's just me having my anxiety, which has been, like I said, really bad since I had Logan. And Euphoria has triggered me a few times, I guess, because to me it hits home a lot more. And it's not just a TV show. Like to me, that was like us growing up in the sense of of everything we did as far as going to parties, things I've witnessed, you know, watching my friend nod off in the corner at parties and doing too many, you know, drugs and stuff like that, and watching her on this downward spiral. That's the whole show's basically is Drew's downward spiral. And that she's only, I think, in 11th grade. I think she's only in 11th
grade, but definitely high school. You know that.
High school. I think she's a senior by the time like the second season. She's either in 10th or 11th grade, and she's 11th grade or 12th grade. Yeah, and it's not far-fetched what she's doing. This show isn't far-fetched, and any parent that sits there and watches it and thinks like, oh, not my child, or this can't happen, this is over-exaggerated because it's a TV show. No, like what they're going through or what is happening in that show, house parties, what they're doing in basements, what they're, you know, the type of drugs they're doing. Oh, people think like the H word, I'm not going to say it because it's like obviously Amazon, that, oh, they're not exposed to that at that young of an age. You're out of your mind if you think that's not accessible at that age. And I think that's the anxiety that triggers me in it, knowing that like this is real life and how do I prevent it? But there is no real way to prevent it. It's just educating on it. And that's why I was like, we need to tell them ASAP. And Josh is like, hold on. We'll see how she is at by a certain age.
Yeah, and I think it's like, who are you to... Well, obviously it's a parent's role to educate and whatnot, but like we should allow in my opinion, like allow kids to have their life experience, which is easy for me to say now as having someone, or as someone that has a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. They're not like in their teens. They're not making crazy ass decisions. And I'm, as much as I love my daughters and I'm going to love however many kids I have, hopefully going to have a third one. I mean, not that we're trying, but like I want to go for a third one. So Ashley, if you end up watching this, like we should go for 3, dude. I'm just saying. And I think like allowing them to be their own people at the end of the day and have a life experience, but also like trying to not, like I think about this, like eventually Lena and Tess are going to bring home a boy or a girl or whoever they want to date. And I'm going to have to like, I'm still trying to figure out like, how am I going to be? Like, how am I going to respond to that? Like, am I going to be threatening to the kid and like say, hey, like you better not come home late? Or do I want to be like, hey, if something goes wrong, call us. We'll make sure that things are like, reach out, don't hide from us, but also don't bring her home late because I will like break your finger or like whatever, you know?
Yeah, I'll break your face.
Yeah.
Pineapple wrote, I've been around many types of people who try things and got addicted to things. I saw so many different behaviors. I'm just glad I haven't gone down that road. And that's exactly to my point of that. I was around that a lot. And I dabbled in things a lot too, as you know, I was growing up. And I'm lucky I didn't like go down that path as well. And like I said, my husband, I feel like was the reason I didn't go down that path. And I got very, very lucky. And I guess let's bring it back to the whole myth topic. Is it true you can be addicted after your first try of something?
Oh,
it is addiction that instantaneous.
Yeah, like where do we define that? What creates an addiction versus just like a choice, like a one-off choice.
Yeah. And
Well,
I think you definitely can get addicted after your first try. So you need to be aware of that.
And so I wonder, maybe if we ask that a different way, like when do you define addiction being an addiction? Because chemically it can happen instantaneously, right? But when would you define it's an addictive situation, or like choices have now become where like that's what an addict would do? Because in my mind, I feel like we all have our own maybe assumptions on, and here's the thing, here's the stigma, like you would not imagine people in certain roles or positions are addicts, right? Or have had issues with drugs and alcohol. But that's why I think it's also important to talk about it. Like I've had my own struggles. So I think by being able to share that perspective from you sharing your own unique perspective, Pineapple, whoever's in the chat to share their own perspective, it like destigmatizes it and it opens up that conversation to kind of, I don't know, at the end of the day, bring awareness and education to it. Because like you said, hey, like we don't want to ruin childhood, but we also don't want to put them in a position that could have been avoided, especially if there's like predispositions to it and like all the different pieces. So the myth of, can you be addicted right away? Like when would you define, what does like an addict look like to you? Maybe is a better, or like what does the behavior choices start to look like?
Well, Pineapple says addiction to me, someone who needs drugs and alcohol every single day. Well, again, addiction also could be anything. It could be food, it could be work, it could be sex, it could be, so there's a million and one things that addiction could be. Coffee too. But yeah, no, it's that you cannot function without it.
Ooh, there you go.
Affects your day-to-day life. But there's also some such things as a functioning alcoholic or a functioning addict and stuff like that. But I think the whole part of the myth thing is that, can you get addicted the first time you try something? Yes. I think that's 100% true.
I mean, this is where I'd want to have like a psychologist or a neurologist on to speak to the details of what's happening in the brain. But if you think of it like just from like a chemistry perspective, which I did out of all the sciences, I did the worst at chemistry. Biology is obviously my best. So take this all with a complete and utter grain of salt here. But once a chemical reaction happens in our brain, or there's a transaction that happens, there's also, here's the other side. I'll tie it back to the myth. But like I was talking about, like, why does our body have it? It's there for a reason, kind of a deal. Like, why do we have receptor sites for drugs? Like, why do we have a receptor site for opioids or for stimulants or things like that? Like, there had to have been we produce our own versions of that internally for our own body and for our own structure. But where it becomes, like, to your point, like the addictive work, and like once there's that transaction, it can become like, now, and again, the neurons that fire together, wire together dynamic can maybe become a play. Hold on, but it looks like Miggs is dropping in some good insight here. So an addict will only identify as an addict when they are ready to make a change. Before that, they won't consider themselves addicted and really can't call other people an addict if they don't already identify themselves. Also, as someone in active recovery, I've met addicts that use every day and some that only use on weekends. Some are functioning addicts and some are unfunctional. We come and call in all different shapes, sizes, and types. So I think that's a great point too. And even to like your point before, so like I agree you might need it every day, but like functioning, maybe you do it on the weekends or you corral it to like a certain
2 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get right back to it.
Yeah, no, those people who will be fine Monday to Friday, they are completely sober Monday to Friday, and then Friday hits, they are downing 3 bottles of tequila, getting blackout wasted, and doing bad things. They cannot function on the weekend without, killing 4 bottles. Yeah, it's crazy how differently addiction can affect everyone. And the crazy thing, there was an episode of Euphoria. I wonder, Migs, do you watch Euphoria? Have you watched it? It may be triggering for you, I'm not sure, but there's an episode where she's talking how to survive as an addict, or pulled the wool over everyone's eyes as an addict. And it was a really good episode. How she's like, step 1, find a crutch. So what she does is, you'll see it in the episode, I'm not giving anything away, that she tells her sister, I think I'm going to smoke weed for anxiety. She's like, make a blanket statement. So now you could cover your tracks if you ever get too high. So now what she's doing is she took too many pills and she's dancing around the kitchen. She looks all messed up. She didn't realize her sister was there. And the sister turns around and goes like, did you smoke, Rue? And she's like, oh yeah, I smoked a little too much and now I'm like super hungry with the munchie. That's why I'm dancing around the kitchen with food. So she's using that they literally find different ways to manipulate the system to make it cover up. So, oh, it's just weed. It's not too bad. Don't worry. I'm just smoking weed. But realistically, they're doing like a million other things behind the scenes, which, you know, we all know is very true here as people manipulate the system the best way they can for everyone to believe them and some sob story. Oh, I have anxiety. I need to do X, Y, and Z to cover up their other 40 other addictions. So, but yes, it affects everyone. Back to pineapple thing, it affects everyone's very differently.
Yeah, and then Migs, hold on, Migs is dropping some more insight here. All the knowledge today. We appreciate you guys hitting the chat and digging into this stuff. So Migs is saying, that was my grandmother. She was an alcoholic and only drank weekends, but didn't stop drinking from Friday after work till passing out Sunday night. And I've never seen Euphoria. I'll have to check it out. No, don't worry about the errors, dude. I can read. I got it. And it's hard because when you're on Amazon, like you can't, you know, it doesn't autocorrect. Yeah, so it like throws you. I'm so used to like it automatically doing that and just going that like it's always butchered when I'm doing it on Amazon.
Guys, if you're here for the first time, click that follow button. It really does mean everything. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being here for our live podcast. We're talking about all different topics. Our original topic was Mythbusters, and then I had a random thought about something that happened to me last week,
and then
we completely went left. But to me, hi Mish, how are you? I like the serious topics. I don't know why. I feel like it's very therapeutic to talk about the serious things, like these type of things, and bringing awareness to them as well. But that's just me. We can make it light and fluffy too. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm like, ooh, remember this traumatic thing that happened to me?
Dude, and I'm totally down to it because I also have. I think it's interesting because we have a unique perspective for each other. Because like I've obviously known you your whole life. And you've known me pretty much my entire life, so that there's a different angle of perspective from it, and because our families are our families, and the angle perspective can be unique too. But yeah, and if you guys again like in the chat, corral us. If you're like, hey, get back to this, man, they're going to that, but like we're gonna dig in, go into these different places, and you guys, we appreciate you guys for even digging into and coming along with us for the ride.
We have pineapple. I know people who need marijuana to function on a daily basis to help them think. Oh, so there's nothing wrong with marijuana. Don't take what I'm saying that I'm judging anyone who smokes. That is not the case here. I have my medical marijuana card. Let's not like go off track with that. But now maybe Migs could get some insight on this. If you are a recovering addict, you are supposed to be 100% clean, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And maybe here we go, another myth.
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
To be considered sober and on the path of a recovering addict and being, you know, in recovery, you can't smoke weed, you can't take anything else or anything unless prescribed. When even then, to me personally, feel like that's a gray area. Like doctors prescribe you certain things, and you could definitely abuse those too. But what's the definition of being sober, or what are you supposed to do as a recovering addict? Is that a gray area? Does it depend on the person, or is that like a coping mechanism? Are they using that to still feed their addiction and then use it as an excuse? So I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's great. And then apparently I was watching this Steve-O podcast on YouTube, or Steve-O's like YouTube channel, and he's talking about, and they kept having this phrase come up like Cali sober, which is basically just like smoking weed but not doing anything else. I was like, I never even heard that phrase before. I didn't even know that was a thing. So maybe like
I think everyone has a different perspective on it, and I think it depends on the person. I think there are a lot of gray areas in recovery. Yeah, I know there's like people who think you have to be 100% dead sober to be considered in recovery, or I guess, is it the word being sober? And then there's some people who feel that like, you know, they can smoke weed, you know, they can do this or do that and stuff like that. So I'm curious what Migs, as far as his recovery looks like, because, you know,
excuse me,
you know, but then now what happens if you're an addict and the doctor starts prescribing you Xanax, Klonopin, this, that, you know, Suboxone, everything else, and you mix that into a cocktail and be like, here you go.
Party. So that's another thing too. Like I think about, you know, going back to like my dad, for example, having to get hip surgery, he can't have any painkillers, or if he has like muscle relaxers and things like that, it becomes a slippery slope. You know what I mean? Or even for me, after my experience, after having a back injury and having the issue with pain pills and like what happens after. But hold on, Migs just dropped. So he's like, I believe that it is I believe that is the old ways. MAT, medicated assisted treatment, okay, is a new way that people are using, and it works. The old ways of AA and NA will say no mind-altering substances at all. However, if you're using marijuana or Suboxone to keep from shooting up heroin and doing that, I support that decision. We each determine our own recovery. It's all about your intentions and your long-term plan. I can't say someone isn't sober. All I can do is offer advice and suggest. Dude, that's such I think a beautiful way to word it, in a perspective of someone that clearly cares about whoever may be struggling with this or maybe feeling like they're facing these things. Because I think that's a big part of it too, is, not being able to communicate with those around you that love you and that you love them, and you feel like you have to hide this thing and that burden that goes along with that, and then trying to figure out like, okay, I'm struggling, so I'm trying to be sober, but I need something, and I attach onto this thing, but I can't say it to anyone because they'll judge me and they'll whatever, and then it becomes this, now you're hiding this other thing, and it becomes this slippery slope, which I don't know what's best either. Like, what I will say is, as someone that's digging into projects like this over the next 3 to 5 years, bringing in like, therapeutic treatments that will be combined with psychology, therapy, and like doing even psychedelics, psilocybin, or things like that, ketamine, whatever, different aspects. I'm not saying I'm doing it personally, but like researching and looking at how we can bring that into facilities. I think that's an interesting term too, the MAT, the like medical assisted or medicated assisted treatment. And it's like, hey, what's best? Because sometimes it's like, if you could hit a reset button on your brain to wipe out, because like, again, when we have an addictive behavior pattern or to drugs, like it changes our brain chemistry. You truly change your brain chemistry. So reshifting that maybe having some kind of medication, or as long as you're doing it under professional supervision, maybe that's beneficial. So I think that's a really interesting way to put it.
Now let me give you this scenario. You're under medical profession, you get drug tested, everything, but now you're prescribed Xanax, you're prescribed Klonopin, you're prescribed all this stuff for your diagnosed, anxiety, depression, anything, so on and so forth. But now what if you started using the Xanax that are going to come up in your drug test no matter what? So no one knows whether you're taking 5, 1, or a half. Or are you taking more than you're prescribed or less than you're prescribed? And you're just cheating the system. There's no true way to know whether they're truly clean or not.
But what is that? What if they have a space where they can talk about that? And if they are struggling, they can just openly say, hey, yeah, I took like 5 yesterday and I'm feeling like shit today. And they didn't feel judged.
As they should. They should look for help. I said it should be something that they should be able to talk about. But now, as I had that problem within my, within the scopes of me of like finding out whether I'm allowing my daughter to be around someone where there's no way to monitor whether they're clean or not. What do I do?
That's a great question. I think ultimately, and in your scenario, I think it comes back down to what are you comfortable with? Because here's the thing. If I can't trust your decision making on how many of this you'll take, I can't trust you to be around my child, ultimately. Like, so I think it comes back down to then, hey, you may even be quote unquote clean. However, you lost that privilege X many choices ago. And until you get to why, which is why might be, because eventually, I don't know, I'm not a professional, but I imagine eventually you don't need to use Suboxone. Eventually, like you should get to a point in your life where maybe you don't need it anymore because the brain chemistry shift has happened, behavior pattern shift has happened. You don't need that to survive anymore. You should be able to wean off of that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a therapist. I don't know, but that would be my perspective. So when you stop using it,
that I think I can't remember who but they have some medical profession that eventually you're supposed to only use Suboxone for like an X amount of time. It's really not good for your body to be on it for a prolonged period of time. That was from my understanding. But, I don't know. I don't know how that's supposed to be and stuff like that. And, again, I just feel like there's always, unless someone's, I've known people who get sober in AA and have a slip. They are so ashamed they end up going back out. I think sobriety needs to be more of a sliding scale, not all or nothing. There are truly needed medication. It comes down to personal program of recovery. I definitely agree with that. I think every situation is different and everyone is a learning experience. They finally just hid Pineapple's message. Are they moderating us? Are we about to get kicked off for using bad words?
No, why? What'd she say?
No, she used the medical M word.
Yeah. So yeah, just certain words maybe I don't text, but like the topic itself, especially And so Migs and Heidi said something in the chat. So Migs says, if you're working a program or working with a sponsor, then they'll usually help hold you accountable if your doctor is prescribing something for you. Perfect example of like, again, like we were talking about, like you have to get Percocet or Vicodin after a serious surgery. But again, it's all about the intentions and speaking with people, communication, support, until the prescription's over. But here's the key thing that you said there, Migs, in my opinion, is until it's over. It shouldn't be an ongoing whatever it is, right? So being able to say, hey, this is my plan for this period of time. Once this period of time lapses or I'm past that, but that's where it's a slippery slope. Now I find myself, oh, you know what? I had this surgery and I'm in pain. I have back pain or I had an accident.
What about for anxiety and like prescriptions like that? Back to what I said, those are all a life. Those are some people who take that for a lifetime, you know, and so forth. You know, I know this is going to sound really mean or really harsh or anything like that. When Pineapple, you say like, all you have to do is guide them. I feel like I don't have to do jack-ish, to be honest with you.
You don't.
I don't have to do anything. It's not my job to help you with what you put us through. And I know that's going to sound harsh. That might sound mean. And it maybe because I'm tainted through what I've been through. But I can give you my advice. I'll tell you my opinion and how I feel. And then all I could do is protect my family, protect my child, and tell you these are going to be the consequences for your actions. And that is it. And if you continue to do what you're doing it on your own. And that's just my feeling on it a little bit. I don't know, Migs, I'm curious to hear what you feel about that as an addict. Do you feel people being there for you is more helpful or hurtful? Or do you feel tough love is more helpful or hurtful in that sense? Because, you know, as you know, me and Mike have family members who, you know, we kind of are a little on the colder side about because we've been through ups and downs with them. And now it's just kind of at the point where we're like, we want nothing to do with you until you fix yourself.
Yeah, it's like, I can't do it for you kind of a deal, you know? And I think to your point, oh, what's up, Evans? Evans says, hey, in the chat, by the way. And I think to your point, being able to not burden that in the sense of like, hey, dude, I didn't ask for this. I'm here for you, but here's the boundaries and here's the capacity at which I could be here for you. This is the scope I can provide. If it goes outside that scope, I'm sorry. This was your choice. And I know that maybe you didn't want all of this to happen, but you have to own it. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. And a lot of times it is your fault, but even if it's not, it's still your responsibility to deal with. It's not necessarily my responsibility. And being able to have that, that's been the biggest thing to me is like, if I had to pick one word, it was boundaries. Like understanding, because dude, in our family especially, I felt guilty leaving New York, man. Like I felt so many things with like, I think about, like even the family dynamics of holidays and Christmas and Easter and stuff. And I wanted my side of the family to be more involved at one point in my life. But now I'm like, really, this is going to sound shitty, but like, I'm grateful that we are where we are. And even though I want them to still be there, but it's like, imagine all this and I was still in New York and being so close to it and all the dynamics at play with all the different moving pieces. It's like, that's why I think about you, dude. And I feel for you and for Josh and like for Logan and all that stuff. And then sometimes that's all you can do. Yeah, exactly. Heidi. Sometimes you just have to like boundaries.
For like me with my brother, I'm like, fix yourself. He needs to get out. He can't be around my kids if he's not sober. But for my parents, it's different. Yeah, I think that the parent-child relationship, it's very hard. But I think also as a parent, there has to be a cutoff. You have to be realistic with yourself that you're only allowing this to go on if you keep enabling the problem. And I think that's a very old school mindset too, of that, you know, they're my kid. I can't, you know, I got to do this for them. I got to do that for them. But you could be hurting them just as much as doing good. And you got to try to stay as strong. I know it's easier said than done, but you got to try to know when that cutoff is and when to stop being, you know, coddling them in a sense.
Yeah, and even like, so Mig said something I think it was like perfectly in line with the series. Like, I believe you can be there for someone indefinitely without enabling, but I don't have to support someone's decision to continue using drugs or alcohol, but I can make sure that they know I'm here however many times it takes to help them when they are willing to help themselves. And then what I said was like, yeah, for sure. But what do you think about when someone gets to a point, like if we get to a point where you're like, dude, I just can't do this anymore. I can't be here for you anymore. This is too taxing.
Like literally call me when you're sober. Like,
yeah, like Exactly. Like I want to be a part of it, but I just like can't anymore because of X, Y, or Z reason. Or it's like you're just not doing the things. Like I've set these boundaries. You continue to not show up. I still love you. Know that. Like I still love you, but like I can't do this anymore. I'm out.
To me, and I think we said this before, you get treated like family when you act like family. And I know that's again, that's the harshness in it. And that's maybe the tainted person in me, but to me, like if you keep treating me like ish, I'm not gonna keep giving you that love and support back. Like I did it the first couple times. We're here for you. We had the talks, blah blah blah. Um, wasn't saying my son. We got me saying my son hasn't been in my life for 4 years because of alcoholism. I would do anything to help him, but he has to want to get sober. And I think that's the hardest decision you have to make. But it's something sometimes you have to do. And I condone you for that, Misha. I know that's probably the hardest decision you ever had to do. And I don't wish that upon anyone or wish that on anyone, any of this going on, because it's horrible. And I know it's hard. He got incarcerated and made him better. It was hard to be around someone like that, though. I see. That's when you say it's hard to be around someone like that, you gotta find a point in yourself when you're saying, should I even be around that person anymore? Is it affecting my life? And sometimes letting them get incarcerated instead of bailing them out every time is what they need to have I'm just using the incarcerated part as an example. Like that's
Yeah.
like a parent who's like, oh my God, I would never let my kid go to jail. I'd lie for them before I let them go to jail. And
But
like,
why?
no, but why? Who are you benefiting by
Exactly.
bailing them out, by lying for them, getting them out of every sticky situation? Don't get me wrong. Yes, it depends on the situation, everything like that. But who are you helping? Are you
So
clearing your conscience as a parent?
So, G, I have a question for you. This isn't even a myth thing. This is just maybe something that made me think about, like, now we're talking about, like, addiction, whatever, but then that makes me think about trauma, childhood trauma. So I think there's this kind of relationship between the amount, and I'm not saying this is a good or a bad thing. I'm just kind of stating my perspective on this. I was talking to someone about it the other day, and it came up again today, so it just reminded me of it, of the amount of trauma you experience in your development equates to, like, really the amount of shit you can take, excuse the language, like the amount of, it's almost like a muscle. Well, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing again, but it's like if you've had to survive through traumatic things, it's like building this trauma muscle where you can like work through craziness, and then the subsequent impact that can have on like changing the world and impacting other people's lives and putting yourself in positions to like make a giant shift. I think there's a lot to that, but also it's a slippery slope too, because then that shift can go from having a positive impact on society to like the complete other end of it, where like all that trauma has accumulated to like, hey, I'm not willing to take anymore, and I'm just like going this route because I want to avoid it at all costs too.
Yeah, and Mish said he threatened his grandmother while under the influence and stole from her. That
Yeah,
was the breaking point. That would definitely be a breaking point for me. I agree
yeah,
with you.
that's so hard.
We've known people who've been in and out of jail and is still recovering. Yeah, see, it's hard because when people don't have that rock bottom, and everyone has a different scale of rock bottom. So if that person hasn't hit their ultimate low, I don't think they're gonna be in and out, But again, it's not my job to support these habits. And I know that sounds harsh and I know that sounds really upsetting. And then again, I can't speak in a situation where I don't have a child who is an addict, and I would never wish that again on put that out there or anything like that. But, just like Mish said, there's a breaking point. There has to be a breaking point. And again, if they want to be a part of my life, I didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
So they should be reaching out to me saying like, hey, especially once they get sober. If they get sober and they don't reach out to you, like that's on them. You should be wanting to, hey, I want to fix this. I'm working on myself. Let's do this, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Like I really want to be a part of your life. If you don't do that, that's not my obligation at that point.
And also, how are we supposed to know that you don't want a life without us in it? Because maybe that's what you think is best. Like that,
Yep.
maybe that's what you need. And then makes you saying, I always say rock bottom isn't a person, place, thing, or event. It's when we as an addict decide to stop effing digging. Yeah, to stop digging that hole, as
Enough
it were.
is enough. Like when is enough enough? Everyone's rock bottom is different. It's literally when enough is enough and you realize you need to change your life. Like that you no longer want to do this. You don't want to, But again, do people hit rock bottom if they keep that cushion underneath them? You know, they're falling and they get back up and someone's enabling that, like, you know, it's a slippery slope. And the majority of people, Pineapple said, the majority of these people who are chronically in and out, they have no parent and no guidance. I mean, yes, statistically, maybe the majority of them.
Excuse me.
God bless you.
Thank you.
But, you know, there are people who have no parents who, you know, get through it as well.
And then what resources can we provide people like that will make an impact? What can we do as a society to saying, hey, we'll provide everything that you could use? And here's the other thing too. It's like you could, let's say you go into a hood, right? We can take a hood as an example, like a rough neighborhood, wherever it is, maybe whatever you want to paint the picture as, and you create a resource. All you got to do is go here and we'll teach you X, Y, or Z. But if they don't have the behavior pattern to do it or the understanding on why that's even important, they're not going to go there. It could be right in front of their doors and it just won't make a difference. So it's something like there's all these other things that happen. So how can we change that shift too? How do we use it, whether it's in like the music that we're creating, the shows that we're creating, the perspective that's being shared, the art that we're making, the message being said, and all the dynamics there.
But yeah, even think like shows like Euphoria, that show that realistic life that is happening and how to handle it and how you can find help. And there are like, you know, she was going to AA, she was trying and stuff like, well, she wasn't really trying. She really didn't care.
0 Fs.
Yeah. So, but you know, showing you that other people are going through it and it's okay to ask for help or show what life can be like as an addict. And as the season goes on and you get into season 2, you'll see how it really starts affecting her life. And, you know, she's just the worst person ever. But I definitely recommend anyone who's not watched Euphoria to sit down and watch it. It is a really good show. Just be aware it can be extremely triggering for anyone who has, like, you know, some type of relationship or knows few people with addiction and stuff like that. So, and also, Pineapple, and that was also included no guidance from childhood. Oh yes. All right, I think we dive pretty deep today. We
got into it, homie.
And thank you. Shout out Migs for giving your insight for us. Are you talking to them right now?
Yeah, and so here's what they're saying. They're just saying, like, to kind of piggyback on that. Luckily, in 2022, there are so many options: AA, NA, Smart Recovery, church, online meetings, online support groups, such as the one I created. Yeah, so Migs has a great Facebook group. You guys can check that. I told him that he put his like social media stuff in the chat earlier. Migs, if you want to drop it again, because we're probably going to be signing off here in a little bit. If you want to drop that in the chat. The resources are endless for someone who's truly willing to take the step and work towards a life without addiction. I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's like the support and the want and the desire to have that change happen and what's the driving force behind it.
Fact.
Right.
Pineapple said, I have no answer for a solution, but one thought is reminding these people and guiding them. However, yes, they still need to meet halfway and want to change. Yes, but again, I know it's going to sound like I'm being harsh. It's after a certain point, it's like enough is enough, and it's not my job to keep guiding you. I'll give you my help as much as I can. If you're not taking it, and it's been years of this ongoing situation, it is no longer I throw in the towel. I am sorry. The same way I had to walk away from my friends. You know, my husband helped me realize, you know, there was probably things that, like, you know, that weren't safe for me and stuff like that. But even family members, there's only so much you could do.
Facts, homie. Facts. And we appreciate you guys. Like, even I just want to say thanks to everyone for opening up and sharing your insight here as well.
Yeah. So shout out to me. Shout out to Pineapple.
Yeah, you know, Heidi even said in the chat, like, honestly, makes you be so proud of yourself. Heidi and Migs, thanks for dropping in the chat and sharing. And again, everybody, we appreciate you guys. Sorry, I'm also like super nasally and stuff. Again, got cold running through the house. And then, yeah, Lori, I saw you got the gift card. Awesome. Yeah, sorry it took so long to send that out. But yeah, y'all, I pretty much that time where I'm gonna probably have to get going because I'm all the congestions.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty tired too, guys. So I'm gonna go actually lay down and watch some TV, pass out. Mike, are we going live tomorrow?
Yeah, so I'm probably not going to end up. I can just hear it in my throat, my voice. Probably not going to go to the gym tomorrow. Hopefully, I will. If I'll be magically just feeling better, but I'm not going to just be that person that comes into the gym not feeling good. So
Yeah.
I'll be down tomorrow night. During the day, I'm a little like kind of slammed with like client calls and stuff. But
Okay.
maybe Friday, even we try and double up. We'll try and do a little double dippy poos. Because I did a double dip today. I did that like a 1 o'clock time, and then you did this morning, right?
Yeah, I did this morning, but I didn't do Wahoo this morning. I just did I did my makeup getting ready type situation. I have sinus allergies with this vlog. So yeah, if you want to do one tomorrow night and Friday night, we could do that, and then we're gonna do a workout on Saturday.
Yeah.
So we got it all coming. We'll keep you guys informed, but we're definitely doing one tomorrow night. Stay tuned for that. Hope you feel much better. I've been a little ill myself. Yeah, I think it's cold season, guys. It is like meow season.
Yeah, and we've taken like a million COVID tests. It's not COVID. We've like taken every single version of it, all that fun stuff.
But with that being said, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and good night. Adios, muchachos.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I just drank from a covered bottle. I should probably open it.
Bye.